ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 9, Dhruva Mahārāja returns home. So in this chapter, we are in the second section of this chapter, where we are studying Dhruva Mahāraja's prayers. So yesterday, Dhruva started offering his prayers touched by the conchshell of the Supreme Lord, and Dhruva Maharaj is going to offer very beautiful prayers. Text 7. Ekastvameva bhagavan idamatma-shaktya maya-khyaya yorugunaya mahadadyashesham srishtano vishya-purushas asadguneshu nanevadarishu vibhavasatu vat vibhasi. Translation.
My Lord, you are the Supreme One, but by your different energies, you appear differently in the spiritual and material worlds. You create the total energy of the material world by your external potency. And after creation, you enter within the material world as the Supersoul. You are the Supreme Person, and through the temporary modes of material nature, you create varieties of manifestation, just as fire entering into wood of different shapes burns brilliantly in different varieties. Purport. Dhruva Maharaj realized that the Supreme Absolute Truth, the personality of Godhead, acts through his different energies. Not that he becomes void or impersonal and thus becomes all pervading. The Mayavadi philosopher thinks that the Absolute Truth, being spread throughout the cosmic manifestation, has no personal form. But here, Dhruva Maharaj, upon realization of Vedic conclusion, says, you are spread all over the cosmic manifestation by your energy. This energy is basically spiritual, but because it acts in the material world temporarily, it is called Maya or illusory energy. In other words, for everyone but the devotees, the Lord's energy acts as external energy. Dhruva Maharaj could understand this fact very nicely, and he could understand also that the energy and the energetic are one and the same. The energy cannot be separated from the energetic. The identity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the feature of Paramatma or Supersoul is admitted herein. His original spiritual energy enlivens the material energy, and thus the dead body appears to have life force. Why do philosophers think that under certain material conditions the symptoms of life occur in the material body? But the fact is that the material body cannot act on its own. Even a machine needs separate energy, that is, electricity, steam, etc. It is stated in this verse that the material energy acts in varieties of material bodies. Just as fire burns differently in different wood according to the size and quality of the wood. In the case of devotees, the same energy is transformed into spiritual energy. This is possible because the energy is originally spiritual and not material. As it is said, Viṣṇu Shakti Para Proktaha. The original energy inspires a devotee, and thus he engages all his bodily limbs in the service of the Lord. The same energy as external potency engages the ordinary non-devotees in material activities for sense enjoyment. We should mark the difference between Maya and Swadharma. For devotees, the Swadharma acts, whereas in the case of non-devotees, the Maya energy acts. Hare Krishna.
Dhruva, he continued his prayers. Now he's praying, my dear Lord, you are the Supreme One, and your different energies appear differently. You enter within this material world as the super soul and thus create varieties of manifestations through your energy, just as the fire enters different logs of woods in different shapes and burns brilliantly in different varieties. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, Dhruva Mahārāja realized that the Supreme acts through his different energies. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. So, Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate, the Supreme Lord has infinite energies, and they act according to the will of the Supreme Lord, right? Now, this energy, Prabhupada says, although there is a large variety of energy, energy is basically spiritual because it is coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is spiritual. Energy is also spiritual, but it acts differently. Srila Prabhupada, other way, somewhere else gives the very brilliant example of electricity is one, but the same electricity may act to heat something as a heater, and the same electricity will go through fridge and acts as cooling potency. Although electricity as an energy is one, there is nothing called as hot electricity or cold electricity. Electricity is one, and similarly, energy is one, and that energy is spiritual energy. And this energy cannot be separated from the energetic. Right. Just like when we say sunlight cannot be separated from the sun. Sun and the sunlight will coexist always. Similarly, energy cannot be separated from energetic. Here, Dhruva specifically, glorifying the feature of Paramatma. He is addressing the feature of Paramatma here. His original spiritual energy is enlivened the material energy. Sometimes, there are some philosophers, they think that the Lord entered everywhere, and because God entered everywhere, he just vanished, disappeared, and now he's everywhere, but not at one place somewhere. He's everywhere. So, Prabhupada says that this is categorically refuted by Dhruva in his prayers. Dhruva Mahārāja saw the Supreme Lord appearing from Vaikuṇṭha, and now later at the conclusion of the prayers and then the benedictions of the Supreme Lord will go back to Vaikuṇṭha. Right? Goloka eva nivasatya akhilatma bhuto. It is not that the Lord has become formless or void because he got distributed everywhere. That is not the case. Just like the father may have 100 children, but that doesn't mean that father got distributed in the children and father doesn't exist. No, father exists, children exist simultaneously. Similarly, the Lord exists and the energies of the Supreme Lord also exist. And therefore, this is called as Viṣṇu Shakti Para Proktaha. The original energy inspires a devotee. But when this energy is transformed materially by the conditioned soul trying to exploit the energy, then that energy becomes Maya, and that energy will trouble the conditioned soul. Daivi Esha Gunamai Mama Maya Duratteya. Otherwise, there is no difference between spiritual energy and the material energy. The difference is the perspective of the person, how he wants to utilize it. It becomes Maya or Swadharma. Text 8. Tvaddhattaya vayunaya idamishta vishvam supta prabuddha ivanatha bhavat prapannaha tasyapavarga sharanam tava padamulam vismaryate krutavida kathamartha bandho. Translation.
Translation: O my master, Lord Brahma is fully surrendered unto you. In the beginning, you gave him knowledge, and thus he could see and understand the entire universe, just as a person awakens from sleep and visualizes his immediate duties. You are the only shelter of all persons who desire liberation, and you are the friend of all who are distressed. How, therefore, can a learned person who has perfect knowledge ever forget you? Purport: the Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be forgotten even for a moment by his surrendered devotees. The devotee understands that the Lord's causeless mercy is beyond his estimation. He cannot know how much he is benefited by the grace of the Lord. The more a devotee engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord, the more encouragement is supplied by the energy of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that to those who are constantly engaged in devotional service with love and affection, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives intelligence from within, and thus they may make further progress. Being so encouraged, the devotee can never forget at any moment the personality of Godhead. He always feels obliged to him for having achieved increased power in devotion service by his grace. Saintly persons like Sanaka, Sanatana, and Lord Brahma were able to see the entire universe by the mercy of the Lord through knowledge of the Lord. The example is given that a person may apparently abstain from sleep all day, but as long as he is not spiritually enlightened, he is actually sleeping. He may sleep at night and perform his duties in the daytime. But as long as he does not come to the platform of working in spiritual enlightenment, he is considered to be always sleeping. A devotee, therefore, never forgets the benefit derived from the Lord. The Lord is addressed here as Arthabandhu, which means friend of the distressed. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, after many, many births of executing severe austerities in search of knowledge, one comes to the point of real knowledge and becomes wise when one surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Mayavadi philosopher who does not surrender unto the Supreme Person is understood to be lacking in real knowledge. The devotee in perfect knowledge cannot forget his obligation to the Lord at any moment. Hare Krishna.
Now Dhruva is praying that, oh my master, oh Prabhu, oh Nath, so specific word, Supta Prabuddha Ivanatha Bhavat Prapanna. So, oh my master, Lord Brahma is fully surrendered unto you, and in the beginning you gave him knowledge. Now, Lord Brahma is family member for Dhruva Mahārāja, right? So he is the great grandfather of Dhruva. Dhruva's father is Uttanapat, his father is Manu, and Manu's father is Brahma. So for him, Brahmaji is his very, very close person in the house. Lord Brahma fully surrendered unto you, and in the beginning you gave him knowledge. And he was awakened, just as a person awakens from a sleep and visualizes his immediate duties. You are Artha Bandho, very beautiful name. You are the Artha Bandho. You are the friend of all the distress. And therefore, how can a learned person can ever forget you? This is the point here. How can a learned person ever forget you? In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot be forgotten even for a moment by its surrendered devotees. So this is the goal of a devotee. Satatam smartavyam Viṣṇu. Vismartavyam na jatuchit. Sarva vidhi nishedasur etayoreva kinkara. There are many rules and regulations, but all the rules and regulations are subservient to this one, Satatam Smaratavyam Viṣṇu, that one should always try to remember the Supreme Lord. Tasmat kenapi upayena mana Krishna niveshet. Somehow or other, we have to engage our mind in Krishna. Prabhupada writes here, the devotee understands that Lord's causeless mercy is beyond his estimation. He cannot know how much he is benefited by the grace of the Lord. Now, this is such a powerful, important statement. I know n number of devotees who have shown their patrika, who have shown their kundali, hasta mudrika, and to astrologers. And the astrologer said that, by your kundali, I can very clearly say these many calamities should have been happening in your life. But because you are a devotee of the Lord, all these calamities are avoided. Right? Karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhaja. So actually we cannot know how much we are benefited by the grace of the Supreme Lord unless we will go back to spiritual world and Lord will reveal everything. how much we were supposed to suffer because of our own past karma in this life and the previous lifetimes, and what opportunities were given to us in devotional service, and how this karma was reduced to a fraction, we are unaware of. Right? So Prabhupada writes here, a devotee understands that by Lord's causeless mercy is beyond his estimation. And this is so very true. Right? And therefore, devotee never feels himself proud, or he has achieved on his own balbute pe. Why? Because he is aware of the past lifetimes, right? And he's aware of the deeds and misdeeds any living entity will create in his past lifetimes. And therefore, he's always Vidadan Namaste, always very grateful to the Supreme Lord. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that to those who are constantly engaged with love and affection, he gives him intelligence from within. This is the constant point, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. So, therefore, a devotee is not on a knowledge quest. The devotee is not something that is always aspiring for more knowledge, and no. Devotee will go ahead with the basic things: Bhagavad Gita, Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, the books that given by Srila Prabhupada, trying to go deeper in those books, and that is enough for a devotee, right? All further knowledge will come by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Here, Dhruva, one can see, the direct example of Dhruva receiving the full transcendental knowledge by touch of the conchshell of the Supreme Lord. So similarly, when we are touched by Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, similarly, when we are touched by Bhagavad Gita, we will get enough knowledge, right? Dadami buddhi yogam tam. Another example Prabhupada gives here is that Brahmaji, he awoke and he started his immediate duties by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada writes here, unless somebody is spiritually awakened, he is always in the mode of sleeping only. Pishachero kole. And therefore, previous purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes this, Jiva Jago, Gaura Chandra Bole. The next word used here is Artabandho. Very, very beautiful word. Correct? Artabandho. Artabandho means somebody who is Artha, distress. The Lord is great friend of such a distressed personality. In fact, Lord calls them as very Udara, Sarva Evaite. Right? In Bhagavad Gita, the four people surrender unto me. Chaturvidha bhajante mam. Jana sukrutinarjana. Arto jitnyasur artharti jnani cha bharatarshava. Udara Sarvaive. The Lord calls all of them as great personalities that even for their own sake, if they are approaching the Supreme, the Lord is very grateful to them. And therefore, the Lord is called as Artabandhu. Bhagavad Gita describes that Bhunam Janmana Mante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate. And therefore, surrendering to the Supreme Lord is very, very special and rare for the Jiva. And therefore, it has to be taken very seriously, right? And then Prabhupada talks about Mayavadi philosopher cannot understand this, neither he will surrender to the Supreme Lord, and thus he will be struggling on the path which is very, very klishta and klesha. Text 9. Nunam vimushtamatayas tavamaya ye tvam bhavapya vimokshanamanya hetoh archanti kalpakatarum kunapopabhogyam icchanti yat sparshajam nirayepi vindranam. Translation.
Persons who worship you simply for the sense gratification of this bag of skin are certainly influenced by your illusory energy. In spite of having you, who are like a desire tree and are the cause of liberation from birth and death, foolish persons such as me desire benedictions from you for sense gratification, which is available even for those who live in hellish conditions. Purport. Dhruva Mahārāja repented because he had come to the Lord to render devotional service for material profit. He here condemns his attitude. Only due to gross lack of knowledge does one worship the Lord for material profit or for sense gratification. The Lord is like a desire tree. Anyone can have whatever he desires from the Lord, But people in general do not know what kind of benediction they should ask from him. Happiness derived from the touch of skin or sensuous happiness is present in the life of hogs and dogs. Such happiness is very insignificant. If a devotee worships the Lord for such insignificant happiness, he must be considered devoid of all knowledge.
Now Dhruva is being conscious why he has performed all the austerity and feeling very, 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 very repentant about his own attitude, why he has started. Persons who worship you simply for sense gratification of this bag of skin are certainly influenced by the illusory energy. Nunam vimushtamatayas tavamayayate. They are influenced by Maya. In spite of having you, who are like the desire tree and the cause of the liberation from birth, old age, the foolish people like me desire benediction from you for sense gratification, which is available even for those who live in the hellish conditions. So there is a beautiful, beautiful realization now. Later, the same point, the 10th verse, is also going to say, Swamin Kurtarthosmi Varam Nayache. Kachan Vichinvan Apidivyaratnam. My Lord, I want a Divyaratna like you. Varam Nayache. I do not desire to have any benediction. I started this for something. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, Dhruva Mahārāja repented because he had come to the Supreme Lord to render devotional service for material profit. Right. Now he is condemning his own attitude. This is due to, Prabhupada writes here, gross lack of knowledge. And therefore Dhruva is worshipping like this. And the happiness derived from the body and the sense gratification is very, very fleeting and very temporary. It is the cause of misery. Right. Yahi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyantavanta kaunteya nate shuramate buddha. Yahi samsparshaja bhoga. Right. The bhoga which comes from samsparshaja, dukkha yonaya evate. It is called as dukkha yoni. And another thing is it's very insignificant. Right. The happiness will last for a few seconds, few minutes, and then there is the hard struggle for that happiness. And therefore, if a devotee worships the Lord for such insignificant happiness, he must be considered devoid of all knowledge. So later in the 11th canto, Lord is going to speak Uddhava, and he writes a very beautiful verse, amazing verse, where the Lord says, although my devotee who is struggling through the life of, the material life, he understands the greatness of spirituality, still unable to fully apply, he struggles, repents, struggles, and thus slowly becomes purified, and I am extremely pleased with him. Okay. So shlokas like this, verses like this, purports like this, they are not to condemn us, but to show the further path, right? And neither they are to, we take some drastic step of something, right? They are always there to where, the benchmark is being set, how progressively we have to go. Otherwise, our application of spiritual life has to be according to time, place, circumstances, and based on one's own personal realization and personal advancement. It cannot be abrupt, right? Text 10. Ya nivritistanubhritam tava pada padma dhyanat bhavajanat katha shravanena vasyad sa brahmani swamahimani apinatha mam bhuta vimtvantaka Sarilulilata patatat vimanat. Translation.
My Lord, the transcendental bliss derived from meditating upon your lotus feet or hearing about your glories from pure devotees is so unlimited that it is far beyond the stage of Brahmananda. wherein one thinks himself merged in the impersonal Brahman as one with the Supreme. Since Brahmananda is also refuted by the transcendental bliss derived from the devotional service, then what to speak of the temporary blissfulness of elevating oneself to the heavenly planets, which is ended by the separating sword of time. Although one may be elevated to the heavenly planets, he falls down in due course of time. Purport. The transcendental bliss derived from the devotional service, primarily from Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, cannot be compared to the happiness derived by karmis by elevating themselves to the heavenly planets, or by jnanis or yogis who enjoy oneness with the supreme impersonal Brahman. Yogis generally meditate upon the transcendental form of Viṣṇu, but devotees not only meditate upon him but actually engage in the direct service of the Lord. In the previous verse, we find the phrase bhavapyeya, which refers to birth and death. The Lord can give relief from the chain of birth and death. It is a misunderstanding to think, as do the monists, that when one gets relief from the process of birth and death, he merges into the Supreme Brahman. Here it is clearly said that the transcendental bliss derived from the Shravanam Kirtanam by pure devotees cannot be compared to the Brahmananda or the impersonal conception of transcendental bliss derived by merging into the Absolute. The position of karmis is still more degraded. Their aim is to elevate themselves to the higher planetary systems. It is said, Yanti Deva Vrata Devan. Persons who worship the demigods are elevated to the heavenly planets. Bhagavad Gita 9.25. But elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita 9.21, we find Kshine Punne Marte Lokam Vishanti. Those who are elevated to the higher planetary systems must come down again as soon as the results of their pious activities are exhausted. They are like the modern astronauts who go to the moon as soon as their fuel is used up. They are obliged to come back down to the earth. As the modern astronauts who go to the moon or other heavenly planets by force of jet propulsion have to come down again after exhausting their fuel. So also do those who are elevated to the heavenly planets by force of yajnas and pious activities. Antakashi Lulitat. By the sword of time, one is cut from his exalted position within this material world, and he comes down again. Dhruva Mahārāja appreciated that results of devotional service are far more valuable than merging into the absolute or being elevated to the heavenly planets. The words Patatam Vimanat are very significant. Vimana means airplane. Those who are elevated to the heavenly planets are like airplanes which drop when they run out of fuel.
Dhruva Maharaj further he is glorifying that, my dear Lord, transcendental bliss derived from the Shravanam Kirtanam is far greater than Brahmananda. And then what to speak of the bliss derived from the material activities even up to the heavenly planets. When one is supposed to fall away from the heaven, when one's fuel of punya karma is over. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that the transcendental bliss derived from devotional service, primarily from Shravanam, Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, cannot be compared to the happiness derived by karmis by elevating themselves to heavenly planets. Right? Somebody may say, Prabhuji, am I really having transcendental bliss? So we surely have transcendental bliss. Otherwise, just imagine Sunday morning, 7:20, 7:15, 7:20, when the whole world is fast asleep. Who will get up early in the morning? Who will read? For no apparent, it's not that we are paid for this reading. It is not that, we have some bank account is increasing, or we are going to get some promotion in our job or somewhere else. We are chanting for so many years, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Our consistency shows that we are deriving the bliss. Apparently, it is not that, we may be appearing some very broad smile and always moving around in a smile. The consistent devotee shows that he is actually immersed in the transcendental bliss. Otherwise, right, consistent faith means consistency. And we are consistently chanting the holy names, consistently glorifying the Supreme Lord, visiting the temple, engaged in seva. And there are devotees for decades they are doing like this. Aren't they deriving transcendental bliss? They are. And this bliss is far greater than the so-called Brahmananda also. Further, Srila Prabhupada says, if the bliss is greater than Brahmananda, then what to speak of the condition of the karmis? Right. People want to enjoy in this world. And when they are not fully satisfied, when they are exhausted enjoying this world, people want to go to the higher planets. Like our, the Musk Baba wants to go to where he wants to go. To the Mars he wants to go. And they are coming up with a company. I heard the news that the market capital of that company is going to be 1.5 trillion US dollar. SpaceX. Okay. How just this shows us, of course, on one hand we appreciate his grit and management and the leadership style, but this also shows how many people they just are desperate for the heavenly enjoyment. Correct. But what happens? What happens is te tvam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam kshine punne martalokam vishanti. They will go to the heavenly planets. Of course, we are not talking about Elon Musk and other gang. We are talking about the yogis. By the virtue of the punya, they will go to the heavenly planets. Detum bhuktva swargalokam vishalam. Enjoy the great opulence in the swargaloka. Kshine punye. But with every enjoyment, your bank balance of punya is getting over. Martyalokam vishanti. And one fine day, they will be kicked out of the heavenly planet. And here, Dhruva beautifully says this as Vimana, Vimana Patan. What is it? Patatat Vimanat. They are just thrown from that Vimana of the heavenly planets. So this is the precarious condition, but not for the one who is engaged in devotional service. And the next verse is, extremely beautiful verse, very, very famous verse of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. So we'll just recite this verse, and then tomorrow again we'll recite this verse and continue our reading. So we'll recite this. Bhaktim muhu pravahtam tvai me prasango. Bhuyatanantamahtam amalashayana. Enanjasol bana Uru vyasana bhavabdim. Yenanjasa ulbuna uru vyasanam bhavabdim. Bhavad gunakathamritapanamattah. Extremely beautiful prayer. Dhruva Mahārāja continued, O unlimited Lord, kindly bless me so that I may associate with great devotees who engage in your transcendental loving service constantly. As the waves of the river constantly flow, such transcendental devotees are completely situated in the uncontaminated state of life. By the process of devotional service, I shall surely be able to cross the nascent ocean of material existence, which is filled with the waves of the blazing, fire-like dangers. It will be very easy for me, for I am becoming mad to hear about your transcendental qualities and pastimes, which are eternally existent. Very, very beautiful verse. Nishe bhavat guna kathamrita pana matta. Says that I want to become pagal matta by drinking the honey of your transcendental activities and qualities and the glories sung by the pure devotees who are always in your association. Bhakti muhu prahavatam tvaime prasango. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.